So, now that we have the beginning of the war settled, at least the plan, the Anaconda Plan, now it's time for us to deal with the first actual battle, which is going to be the first Bull Run, or the first Manassas, which occurs southwest of Washington, D.C., in a little place called Manassas Junction. Okay? It's about 35 miles southwest of Washington. All right? So, it occurs on July 21st, 1861, and the Union general in charge is Brigadier General Irvin McDowell, and the Confederate in charge is Brigadier General Pierre G.T. Beauregard. Now, Beauregard's going to be reinforced by two additional guys, General Johnston and Jackson. Now, General Jackson, Thomas Jackson, is who would become later known at this battle as Stonewall Jackson. Okay? He is the professor from Virginia Military Institute that we talked about earlier that left his teaching duties to become a general in the field in order to help out the Confederacy. So Manassas Junction sits down here, southwest of Washington, and McDowell is going to approach from the north, Beauregard is going to approach from the south, and Johnston is going to reinforce from up here. They both kind of collapse on McDowell and force him to retreat. His troops are going to have to retreat and scatter back to Washington, D.C. There was no organization in the retreat whatsoever. And what made matters worse is that people from Washington, D.C. actually turned out to sort of watch the battle as if they were spectators at a sporting event. And they realized very quickly that real bullets were being exchanged, and that this was the real deal. There was actual blood loss. So they actually had to get back in their horse and buggies and get out of the way. They had packed picnics and spread out blankets to watch what they thought was going to be the only battle of the war unfold. They quickly learned that that was not going to be the only battle of the war. So the Union is forced to withdraw. So the aftermath of the first Bull Run is that it's the largest and bloodiest battle in U.S. history to date. We had never seen blood loss on this scale ever in our history on this continent. Both sides realized very quickly the brutality of this war, and that it was going to be very, very ugly, and that it was probably not going to be a short war. It was going to be long and drawn out. George B. McClellan is named by Lincoln to head the Army of the Potomac at this time, and this begins the hokey pokey of the generals. He's known as the young Napoleon, and why does he get that name? Because he's quite the thinker. McClellan sort of had a reputation for strategy, understanding strategy, and drilling his troops. He drilled his troops to a fault. Almost to a, well, it does get to a point where Lincoln actually has to go to him and ask him, do you mind if I borrow the army? Because I'd actually like to fight a war here. McClellan just drills and drills and drills his troops, and it just gets to the point of obsession. Now, the Peninsula Campaign is the next thing that McClellan does, and he's going to launch this campaign in March of 1862, and it takes a few months for this campaign to unravel and to unfold. He launches it with 121,500 Union troops, and it takes place south of Washington, D.C., and even south of Richmond. So you can see here, if this is New Jersey, and this is the eastern seaboard here where Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia are, the eastern shore, then you've got Virginia right in here. So you've got Richmond, and McClellan is going to bring his troops down here, and he's going to launch his attack from the south and try and go overland to Richmond. That's his goal through the Peninsula Campaign. It takes a long time, and it takes too long, and Lincoln gets very impatient with him. Come on, dude, hurry up, this is getting old, okay? Jackson launches what's called the Valley Campaign up here to the north west of Washington, D.C. That happens in April and May of 1862 because he realized what McClellan was doing, and he realized where McDowell was. And he knew that if he let McDowell's troops be able to turn around and join with McClellan, that Richmond was in real danger. So he couldn't let that happen. So he had to engage McDowell up here around D.C. so McDowell couldn't join up with McClellan. So that was the Valley Campaign there. Keep the Union reinforcements from reaching McClellan and being able to join up. Okay? 7 Days battle is the next one, and it takes place over, of course, 7 days, but it is a series of 5 different battles. The Union would win 4 out of 5 of those battles, so you would think that the Union would win the whole shamoli, but they don't. They lose the final battle, which is the quintessential battle. It has to be the one they win in order to win the whole deal. Okay? So that doesn't go well. The outcome here is if McClellan had reached Richmond, if he had won this final 7 days battle, then the war would have ended. But here's the catch. The war would have ended with slavery still intact because nothing about slavery had changed at this point. This was still a war of union and bringing the country together as one. Lincoln still had not recognized it as a war about slavery. So that would have been an interesting deal had that happened. Now, Lincoln realizes at this point that he needs a moral cause for the North. He needs to have something for the North to fight for, something more passionate. So he begins to draft the Emancipation Proclamation, but he has to wait for the right time to roll that out. It just can't happen just like that. It has to be at the right time on top of a Union victory, so we have to wait for that. There's that bell. So the Union's going to devise a 6-pronged battle plan. They're going to stick with the blockade of the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico shores. They're going to free the slaves, okay, because that's quintessential. That's the Emancipation Proclamation. And they're going to stick with seizing the Mississippi River, okay? They're going to chop up the South and send troops into Georgia and South Carolina. We're going to see Sherman come into play there. Capturing Richmond, remember the goal, capture the capital, and then grind them into submission. And that becomes key, is we have to just push and push and push until the South finally capitulates and raises that white flag. So that'll be the end, okay? So remember this 6-point plan, because this is how we're going to follow the war. That's it.